Greetings and welcome. You're tuned into TMH's Daily English News. Our headlines for today: the Tigray government has urged the international community to press the Abiy Ahmed regime to release tens and thousands of incarcerated Tigrayans. Currently, Uganda's People's Defense Force dismisses report on government funding and the Tigray forces as well. And the commission says Ethiopia is still in the grip of spreading violence and hate speech, as well as aid crisis. As we move on to our main updates for today, the government of Tigray calls on the international community to press the Abiy Ahmed regime to release tens of thousands of Tigrayans who are still currently languishing in these concentration camps throughout the entirety of the country. The government of Tigray also released a statement on the ongoing mass detentions of these Tigrayans solely on their account of identity. Since November 2020, tens of thousands of Tigrayans have been rounded up by the Abiy Ahmed regime solely on the account of their identity. Among those mass arrested are several thousands of retired and active members of the Ethiopian National Defense Force. Hundreds of those detained have been murdered, with some others dying under extreme suspicious circumstances as well. The Abiy Ahmed regime has also forcibly repatriated Tigrayans and migrants and refugees alike from the Middle East, and has done so in a very flagrant violation of international law and the principle of non-refoulement as well. And again, according to this statement, those that have been repatriated have been held in concentration camps across the country and treated as other prisoners of war. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission issued a statement on the 29th of 2022 decrying the inhumane detentions of 8,560 innocent Tigrayans that were stuck in Samara Afar region. And the government of Tigray noted that while this commission was established to function as an independent entity, it is a de facto appendage of the Ethiopian state. It also added the commission is one way or another instigated, facilitated, and or glossed over the campaign of national extermination directed against the Tigrayans. The statement did indicate that the commission dutifully parroted the Abiy Ahmed's regime talking points, amplifying its propaganda and the smear campaign that they had against Tigrayans based on their identity as well. The statement noted what is indisputable is that the Ethiopian army under Abiy Ahmed's deplorable reign has become hell on earth for Tigrayans. The statement also noted that by focusing on all the thousands of Tigrayans being held in Afar, while conveniently ignoring the tens of thousands of Tigrayans being held elsewhere in the country, the commission appears to have made a lame effort to present the former as an isolated acts of rights of violation rather than a part of systematic campaign of brutality against Tigrayans based again on their identity alone. It's said that Abiy Ahmed's regime and violations of citizens' human rights is not a bug, but a basic feature of the regime's overall makeup, and the government of Tigray stated that the goal of the commission's statement is to rewrite history and present itself as an advocate for those facing repression when reality is not. The commission's shameful indifference to or even championing of the suffering of Tigrayans at the hand of vindictive and predatory regimes stands in sharp contrast to the speed with each victim and been quick to point fingers at the government of Tigray for alleged human rights violations, as the statement once again underlined. It also added that the commission, however, has lost whatever shred of credibility it had as an act of arbiter of dispute over human rights violations. The government of Tigray urged the international community to immediately deploy robust packages of punitive actions to compel the genocidal regime to either desist from criminalizing further Tigrayans and based on their identity, or to release the thousands of Tigrayans that are currently languishing in concentration camps as well. The statement did in fact stress that the Abiy Ahmed regime, like all authoritarian regimes and past and present, responds to nothing but preponderant economic and political as well as diplomatic pressures. As we move on to our next update, Human Rights Watch says a culture of impunity has emboldened unaccountable security forces in Ethiopia in an article titled "Ethiopia's Other Conflict, Ethiopia's Tigray War Overshadows Ongoing Cycles of violence within the Oromia region. In November 2020, the global attention turned to the outbreak on conflict in Ethiopia and the northern region, specifically within Tigray, between Ethiopian government forces and its allies against Tigrayan forces. The war on Tigray has been horrific violations of human rights as well as human rights law. Human Rights Watch did say that before the conflict in northern Ethiopia, there had been a widespread of impunity for ongoing rights abuses in Ethiopia's Oromia region, including areas already suffering from conflict. Many of these abuses still persist and require urgent international attention, as the statement alluded to. And according to Human Rights Watch, again, an abusive government counterinsurgency campaign against an armed group, the Oromo Liberation Army to be specific, in Western Oromia was already underway, with civilians caught in between, suffering numerous abuses and atrocities. Despite these restrictions, however, human rights groups and the media have been able to report on serious abuses by the government's forces, including summary executions and arbitrary detentions as well. Human Rights Watch said armed groups have also abducted or killed minority community members and government officials. The human rights body did state that the culture of impunity for security forces and abuses has only emboldened unaccountable security forces and done nothing to prevent them from going further. Uganda's People's Defense Forces have dismissed reports on the government funding Tigrayan forces in this ongoing conflict within the country. The Ugandan People's Defense Force has dismissed a report that is circulating in Ethiopia's media claiming that Uganda is funding Tigray forces to, in fact, overthrow the Ethiopian government. An alleged leak intelligence report dubbed by the Ethiopian media since May has been claiming that Uganda is training Tigrayan forces and also channeling funding to them through South Sudan. However, the UPDF spokesperson, Brigadier General Felix Kulaye, yesterday said the report is just total fabrication, adding the so-called report on alleged attempts to destabilize Ethiopia as a total fabrication that exposes the author's ignorance of simple and basic facts. First, he says Uganda does not border Ethiopia as the author claims. Secondly, once James Kabarbe has never been a minister of defense in Uganda. And thirdly, Uganda's ambassador to South Sudan has never met the alleged General Akol Kor as well. The report came months after the UPDF commander, Land Forces Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, tweeted statements accusing the Ethiopian government of carrying out rights and abuses. In May, the Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs, Vincent Sempija, flew to Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital, and met with the Ethiopian Chief Defense Force, Field Marshal Birhanu Jula, which the duo discussed security matters, including this alleged report as well. The International Commission of Human Rights Experts says that Ethiopia is still in the grip of spreading violence, has hate speech, as well as aid crisis prevention. UN Human Rights Council appointed right investigators announced on Thursday that they've launched a probe into the alleged massacres of at least 200 civilians and peoples in Ethiopia's Oromia region. Kari Betty Murungi, chair of the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia, was briefing the Human Rights Council in Geneva in what was the Commission's first appearance since its creation in December last year. The Commission had received reports last week of the killings in Western Oromia, as it has continued at the working investigation reports abuse to the conflict in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region that flared in the end of 2020, November 4th. Despite many other conflicts around the world, Murungi did in fact emphasize that the world must not ignore what is currently happening in the northern region of Ethiopia. She says the ongoing spread of violence fueled by hate speech and incitement to ethnic-based violence and gender-based violence are yearly warning indicators of further atrocities and crimes against innocent civilians, especially when women and children are who are the most vulnerable. She added that expanding conflict exacerbates the existing conditions and the humanitarian crisis that is currently being experienced throughout the entirety of Ethiopia. And Murungi does say that the dire humanitarian crisis, made worse by lack of access in some areas, by the civilian population to humanitarian assistance, including medical and food aid, obstruction of aid workers, and persistent drought, again exasperates the suffering of millions of people in Ethiopia within the region. She said the commission emphasizes the responsibility of the government of Ethiopia to bring an end to such violence on its territory and bring those who are in fact responsible to justice at last. Our final update for today: the Ethiopian government and the ruling Prosperity Party are said to be actively working to deposing the Ethiopian Patriarch, His Holiness Abuna Matthias. UMD Media said it has received new reliable information that the Ethiopian government and the ruling current Prosperity Party have reached a decision following the assessment of quote-unquote weak level of acceptability challenge that they are facing. His Holiness Abuna Matthias, Patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, in a paper presented by Deacon Daniel Kibret, Social Affairs Advisor of the Prime Minister to Prosperity Party senior cadres at the African Leadership Excellence Academy, formerly known as Meles Zenawi Leadership Academy, suggested that the party and the government need a patriarch that is subservient to their interests. Daniel Kibret's paper has also identified individuals within the church, including bishops, who are considered a threat to the government, with a two-step solution. The first being that this campaign against the individuals on social media and other media is to be followed by appropriate measures, and sources who have spoken to UMD on condition of anonymity said that the patriarch is reportedly aware of all of this and the developments that are to come, and has said that he has no plans of vacating his seat as the patriarch, even if they were to kill him. According to the same sources, the personnel did say the safety of the patriarch is a much precarious situation given the party's government's quote-unquote determination to push him out at any cost. That concludes our news for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.